Okay, so the mountain house is now placed on the site, and we need to get through how do you actually take an axonometric section of this building while it's on the site. It probably would be a little more prudent to do it on a slope rather than at the peak itself, and to do a smaller sampling of, of the actual contours. So this is where it gets a little bit, what's the word for it? Creative, I guess, because you have to decide whether or not you want to show the actual surface of the hillside, or if you want to show the just the lines of the contours. And so for me, I'm going to show just the lines of the contours because it's the extra step. If it's just the surface, you guys already have that there. So let me just Axonometric Section so that you can see where we're headed. Okay, an axonometric section, this is a pretty good one actually. An axonometric section is basically taking your section view and it's showing the information behind it in a angled projection is kind of the easy way of saying it, I guess. So you do need the site information, you do need the building. Well, you don't need the site information if it's a siteless building, but one that's actually on the site, it would behoove you to actually show the context, the site that goes around it as well. So for me, I'm doing a simplified version where I'm not just showing a curved surface like this one is showing its flat site. I'm actually going to show the contours around it as individual curves, and then I'm going to modify it to show it. It's up to you whether or not you want to decide to do a split one that kind of fans out, or if you only want to do one side. You could do it either way. I'll show you guys how to do the split one because it's more complex. And then if you want to do the one-sided one, you have the option of either only keeping one half or using a clipping plane, and then you only have to see one half in the first place. Back to the model. So what I need to do here is first just locate it. And I know this house is a little bit ugly, so to simplify it a little bit, I am not really going to concern myself too much with the actual quality of the design and stuff and where it's facing, but I'll say very simply that I don't want this thing to face north. I want it to face east and west, and so that's why I have an eastern glazing wall here and a western glazing wall here. Okay, so those are my two views. So it's pretty much in the proper location right here, but I kind of want to, since I've got this other little peak on the right side, I want to turn it, and I've got this ridge here, and I kind of want to look down where it's a little bit lower. So I'm just going to turn it ever so slightly in this direction. So that way we're kind of looking straight out through the peak this way, and we kind of have a better shot in the lower hills on the left side, not quite exactly at the peak up there. However, because of the way this glazing opens up, you can still see the peak from that room. If I spin it around, you can see it right there. Right? Kind of cool. Anyway, I'm not going to go much further than that, and so now I'm just going to figure out where exactly it's going to sit. And for me, I'm going to ever so slightly slide it off to the side so that it's on an actual slope, and then just kind of pull it down in little bits until it sits with its bottom platform roughly at the bottom of the hillside right there. The rest of it I'll kind of figure out later on. Okay. Yeah, that's okay with me. All right. So you should go through the process of actually removing the hillside and the location of your building. which is pretty simple. And then we're going to do some infill exercises. And this is all just preparation to make the export process really easy. So I have, well, I'm going to make a layer for negatives. Call it blue. And so these are going to be my subtraction volumes. I'll also make another layer called landscape. I'll make this one sure brown. And this is going to go on landscape. Then I've got negatives, so I can turn landscape off. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with the bottom footprint, because the bottom footprint here for me personally, whoops, is the only thing that's penetrating through the hillside. So see how I zoom down and I see just the bottom footprint below, nothing else, and I don't see anything penetrating up here. So you will have to do your own personal analysis to understand what is actually penetrating the landscape and what can you modify. And in fact, I think I want to slide this down a little bit more because I can play around with that. Yeah. So I'm going to slide that down a little bit more. It'll help me with construction costs. Okay, so my negative is going to be a profile curve. Let me turn near off. And it's going to go around this whole bottom face. Make sure that you're very careful to keep it as a planar curve. I guess it doesn't really matter if it's super planar, but grab that curve, and I'm going to do extrude curve. And just for good measure, I switch it to both sides and I extend it very far beyond. Okay, because the only thing I'm concerned with here is the surface slope, not the building. So it's okay if this thing actually penetrates the building. And so I basically just do, I can turn default off so that I can see what's going on. But I can actually just do a trim and select this as the cutting object, the extrusion, and trim out the red surface. So now when I turn my wall back on and turn the negatives off, what you see now is an actual cut surface into the building. Okay, so I've got a couple more I'm going to have to clean up, but know that now this particular room is actually underground. Okay, so that room is underground. It's probably best suited for a wine cellar, but whatever. And then now I notice that I've got a little bit to clean up here. And so I can pretty much just draw, let me just turn this off to make it easier on myself. So I'll turn this off. I can get rid of this curve. And I can draw another curve around this floor. Yeah. Actually, I'll go out to the outside edge. And carry it all the way through to there. To here, and back out to there. Okay, and I'll do an extrude curve. Again, I'll just leave it on both sides so that I have that. And then I can do a trim again, select this as the cutting object, and get rid of the surface inside. Is that on the inside face? Should be on the outside face. Well, I'm getting a graphic. Whoops. Yeah, okay. That's right. All right, so just something to kind of bear in mind. Your models are going to be more complete than mine. I'm able to see more, but if you find yourself in this position and you can't see anything inside, you can either use clipping planes to give you some visibility inside the building, or you can just kind of zoom in and go like this. If you zoom in and you like that as a method, I'm giving you guys this as a really good tip. You should take note of this. If you switch your lens length under properties, make sure nothing is selected, go to lens length, change this to 22, and you can see a bit more. Changes it to a wide angle lens. Okay? You can actually go really far down too. You can go to like an 11, but then it gets like totally crazy. Oh, whoa, not that. See, like this one's totally wild. It works, but it gets totally weird. 22 is what I usually suggest as a minimum. Okay. So, the objective here. The objective here is to get a axonometric section with the site. So to simplify this, I'm going to make a copy of this whole thing and just put it off to the side so that I don't lose any of my other information. And in fact, when you're doing something like that, you should probably save. So Control S or go to File Save. Make sure you're doing that a lot when you're working with big files like this. I'll go back to 50. So now this is the one I'm going to work on. And I'm going to trim this down a bit more, actually. So at this point, what I'm concerned with is really just a pretty small radius around the building. So I'm going to go to my top view here and draw a rectangle. Put it on default layer. Draw a rectangle that kind of just spans the building. And then in the top view, you can start off by trimming. So I trim, I select this as the cutting object, and trim off everything else. And it gives you this. In fact, that's a little too large. So I'll zoom in a bit more, draw another rectangle, kind of like this. Trim, cutting object, surface, gone. Alright, so this is essentially going to be the landscape that my building is going to go on when I do my section. Okay, so at this point, what questions do you have? Alright, so once again, it's a very different way of seeing it, but I haven't done anything here that you have not done a number of times already in this class, right? Trims, extrude curves with a bunch more trims. That's pretty much it. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video here and move on to, actually producing the line work, and then, then I'll just go on from there.